Hey everybody, I'm here with John Stonestreet from the Colson Center. He's the president there, runs an amazing program, worldview training and development of young people, intellectual formation. And it's an honor to have him speak to us Singaporeans. And so, John, just a quick introduction about Singapore. Have you ever been?
I haven't. So when are you going to make that happen?
Oh man, when you come, I will make the best experience happen for you.
All right.
Now, I'm sure you've heard of it as a nation, though.
Of course.
What's the impression that comes across when you hear about Singapore?
I can't say anything in particular, but I just know right now that the West has been exporting all kinds of things, products,
You bet.
but the most important exports from the West around the world have been ideas, and they haven't been good ideas.
Yeah.
They've been ideas that promise maybe financial flourishing or things like an added choice, but they're not delivering.
Yeah.
Particularly, they're anti-human. And it really, I think, has created some real challenges for nations around the world. So my guess is Singapore gets some of our bad exports in terms of our ideas.
I mean, you have this saying, right? Ideas have consequences and bad ideas have victims.
Have victims, yeah.
That's right. And so, okay, if you were to think of some of the bad ideas that might have been exported, what would you name off the top of your head?
Oh, I mean, look, you could get into the specifics about when life begins or when life ends or when life makes life valuable. But at the core of it, I think, is this lie about autonomy. That somehow, because we are individuals, therefore we're autonomous. We're not relying on anyone else. We don't need anyone else, and we don't have any responsibilities. And so, really, life is all about self-expression. And so, Carl Truman, in his book, has called this expressive individualism, where
radical individualism.
Our main task is to decide who we are and project that on the world. And then our second task is to accept everyone else's projection of the world. The problem is that people are fallen. So the disconnect from reality gets further and further and further.
Yes.
And it has implications on everyone else because we're not actually autonomous. That's just a lie.
I like how you just summarized it, because in that bifurcation between communitarian ethics and individualism, you are able to have many different issue areas parked under that.
Almost all of them. I mean, if you think about beginning of life issues, medical technologies, you think about what it means to be educated, you think about what laws we should pass for the human good, they're all connected fundamentally with what you think it means to be human.
Right.
The identity question is the core question of modernity, and then after modernity, because it goes down to the great question: who says what we should do, who says who we are? And when all that's up in the air, when you have everyone's their own king in and of themselves, it's unsustainable.
Right. Now, this is an interesting paradox, because Singapore is actually a very communitarian nation. We're Asian, we're Confucian. And so we have that sense of mutual responsibility, filial piety, care for our fellow men.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there is this Western paradox that comes in that causes some of our most treasured relationships, like the relationship between a mother and her child, for example, to be viewed not from a lens of responsibility and care, but rather individualism and self-actualization. Why do you think we're so susceptible to trading on our heritage for something that kind of suits us better?
Well, I mean, look, the easy answer is we're sinners, and the initial lie was you shall be like God. I mean, that's the easy answer. But I think it is, even when you have a culture, and all cultures are strange mixes of all kinds of different forces. Certainly, Western culture is a mix of many different voices, not just kind of a Judeo-Christian or a secular, but also remnants from the Greco-Roman philosophers and so on. But I think, here's how it kind of plays itself out. So we project this individualism, this radical individualism, that elevates sexuality because our value now doesn't come from anything outside of ourselves. It has to come from some experience, some sense of, then you either choose power or pleasure. And most people don't have access to power. And so, but the only way to really have an autonomous view of sexuality is to deal with the product of sexuality, which is obviously a child. And so you have to then say, oh, in order for me to preserve my dignity, contraception, and this is what we've done in the West, is an issue of women's rights. Abortion is an issue of women's reproductive health care. So we start using language then to cover up where really what's at the core. We're even doing it with family. You know, we say things that, you know, the worst idea in America for the last 5 years, 10 years has been love makes a family.
Since a burger fell?
Yeah, well, at least. And think about the logic here. So every social science study that's ever been done on the family says the family is the unique thing that brings value to the world, especially to individual lives. If you want to guarantee a child's success, your best bet is to get married, stay married to the mother of your child, and that's going to happen. Okay, so what we want is all the benefits of family, but we want to expand family to accommodate our desires. So we think we can call anything a family and get the same benefits. It's like saying, you know, I want to be rich, so I'm going to change my name to Rockefeller. Therefore, I will be rich.
You claim the benefits.
You claim the benefits of it, and so. But again, think about what's at the root. Is I want what I want, and it's just redefining what's there.
Okay, now since we're talking about family, can you just answer this, because there's so much confusion. The narrative that love makes a family is compelling. It is rhetorically useful. It is short, sharp, and to the point. Why is it untrue?
Well, because a family is made up of something. And half of the question culturally right now, which started in philosophy but now has reached every level of our experience, including public policy, is the question, is reality given to us? Are there givens to reality, or is reality a social construct?
Can you make
so you think about marriage, if you think about family, you think about value, you think about anything. You know, the postmodern view is that reality is a social construct, that a group of people get together. In other words, reality is made up of speed limits, not gravity. And you think about the difference between gravity and a speed limit. Gravity, look, we can have a committee get together and say, we think gravity now should be going up instead of down. It doesn't change.
Doesn't change gravity.
But that's how a speed limit works. A speed limit is a social construct. We think that public policy and marriage really is about speed limits, when really what we're trying to do is deal with gravity. That's why you have, for example, building regulations, because there are realities that no matter how much you don't want them to be true, they still are true.
Okay, I'd like to push you on that just a little bit, because it's a useful analogy, gravity versus speed limits. But at the same time, it doesn't answer the core crux of the question from somebody who really is seeking for truth, right? So for us to say that marriage has an objective shape, it is objectively defined, not socially defined. And the same for family, it's got an objective shape. Can you just unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
What gives it this objective shape?
Well, look, the question is what do you want to look at? Do you want to look at sociology? If you want to look at sociology, there are tons of studies, and these studies tell us that children do best when they are raised in a home with married mom and dad.
Okay.
And no other arrangement comes close. Every part of that you remove, mom or dad or marriage or biological or whatever, it reduces the good that it brings.
Benefit to the kids.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing that we know from sociology is that men and women parent differently.
Sure.
They bring different things. Yeah, as one of my friends puts it, moms don't dad and dads don't mom.
That's great.
Right? In other words, there's no such thing as parents according to sociology. There's mothering and fathering. And they do it differently, and they bring unique things to the lives of their children. So that's if you want one source of authority, you could look at the sociological data and say, well, look, if that's the case, then we should legislate in ways that incentivize families to look like that. And we should not legislate in ways that incentivize families to do something different. Okay? Then we also can assume, well, if all of those things are required to call, to say things like kids don't need a mom and a dad, they just need parents, it's just a platitude. It's not true. There's not data that supports that. There's data that supports kids need a mom and a dad. The other thing you can look at is what we call natural law, or just biology. Men and women are different. When men and women come together in a sexual union, a child is produced, right? This isn't, we're having a debate right now in the United States, now that we have legalized same-sex marriage, about same-sex parenting. And even more than that, as parenting as a right. So you actually have people filing discrimination claims because they
not
can't
allowed.
have children.
Yep. Mhm.
No, it's not that they're not allowed.
Okay.
They can't physically have children.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about same-sex couples.
Right.
And they're saying it's almost like a claim that reality is discriminating against us.
So they sue biology? What?
They sue the insurance company. So think about insurance company covers reproductive health care. They're saying that, so let's say that a man and a woman get married and they're infertile. So they want fertility treatments so that they can have a child.
Yeah, okay.
Insurance can help with that.
Right.
If you're two men or two women, they also sue the insurance company for not covering their fertility treatments. Now, a fertility treatment in their case means involving a completely different human being. In the first case, something's gone wrong.
Yes.
In this case, nothing's gone wrong.
It's an
just
entitlement plea.
You just don't have the two parts that you need in the two systems. Now, look, it's hard to talk about these things.
No, sure.
And be appropriate, but my point is, these are observably different things, right? They're observably different on a multitude of levels, both in terms of what both parties are bringing to the union, what you can expect, whether you're talking about a disability or some sort of condition where something's gone wrong or everything's working out, and yet this is the natural law argument. So think about what we're talking about here. To change family law is clearly to buck up against reality.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not discrimination, or you could say reality discriminates, I guess.
But what about the will of the adults in question? So let's say our two men or our two ladies or intentional single parenthood, right?
Well,
what about the will of the adult?
Well, that's what's won the day in the West, is adult happiness somehow is presumed to be, first of all, the highest value, and it's supposed to mean all of reality will change in order to conform to it.
Suit our preferences.
Yeah, my friend Katie Faust is here. Hopefully you get a chance to talk to her. Katie, I was interviewing her earlier. She said something really profound. She said, we've spent the last several decades expecting kids to evolve. But kids are stubborn. We thought that they would evolve so that they could come into existence without a man and a woman. Didn't happen. We thought that they could evolve so that they would be okay if they had two dads or two moms instead of a mom and a dad, or a single mom and a single dad. And you know what? They're not okay. But every chapter of the sexual revolution have been the kids will be fine, the kids will be fine. And none of it happened. So we can either continue to buck up against reality and still expect kids to do something they're not going to do, or we can conform to reality in a way that is best for them. This should be the foundation of public policy for two reasons. Public policy should be about the future.
Yes.
A government's job is to secure the future. If you don't secure the rights and well-being of children, you're not securing the future.
The weakest in society.
Well, that's it. The most vulnerable, the ones that need care. But here's the other thing we've learned in the West too. And there's a reckoning happening in the West. And I hope we export some of this reckoning before we export some of these other things. We have prioritized adult happiness. Tried to change reality around public policy and other things and we are the most unhappy we've ever been. It hasn't worked.
Because I suppose we've been after our interests rather than the interests of others. It seems like the modern adult is a bit of a hodgepodge of petulant individualism as opposed to us doing what mature adults ought to be doing for the sake of others.
I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, there's a lot of explanations for it, but one is just, look, the older you get, the more others aware you should become. We know that that's a mark of maturity, right? So you get to the point where you're ready to say, I'm going to marry this person for life. That's like the ultimate. And then you have a child. And then you're like others aware, right? All night long. When you're young, you're self-absorbed. And the older you get, the more you're supposed to turn outside of yourself for the good of others. So Jesus says the greatest commandment, turn outside of yourselves, love God, love others. We are a society then that has instead told people to turn increasingly inward to value self. And really, there was a book I read years ago that called this that kind of talked about this Western culture as in a state of perpetual adolescence.
Okay, right?
We've never outgrown it, and I think that there's a lot that can be trace back to that.
It would be great for Asian societies to return to what made us good in the first place, which was this communitarian, other-focused outlook on life.
Yeah, that
And,
is. It'll make a big difference.
Yeah, that would be wonderful for Singapore. John, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate you.
Super
Thank you for
appreciate
your work.
this interview.
And bring me to Singapore.